If that little girl truly has money in this account, I'll personally write her a check for $10,000 right here, right now. Raymond Lawson's voice boomed through the marble lobby of Caldwell Trust and Banking, his arms crossed, a cruel smile spreading across his face. Every customer froze, turning toward the counter where 6-year-old Maya Caldwell stood clutching her teddy bear. "Guardian, it's mine," Maya whispered, her small hand sliding the platinum card across the counter. "My daddy gave it to me." Raymond snatched the card, holding it up like evidence. "Your daddy?" "Sweetheart, this card belongs to someone important. Not," he paused, his eyes scanning her worn dress, "someone like you," the crowd murmured. A woman whispered. An elderly man shook his head. Maya's eyes glistened, but her chin lifted. "Please just check it." "Oh, I'll check it." Raymond's fingers stabbed at the terminal keys. "And when it comes back empty or stolen, security will escort you out." The machine beeped. His smirk widened as he grabbed the printed slip. Then his face drained white. His hands trembled. The number was astronomical. The glass doors burst open. Nathaniel Caldwell strode in, his presence silencing the room instantly. He placed a protective hand on Maya's shoulder, his voice cutting like steel. "That card belongs to my daughter, and you just made a $10,000 bet you're about to lose. CTA Combinada. If you believe that no one should ever face discrimination based on their appearance while simply accessing their own bank account, type dignity below. Then comment your country and city. Let's see where people stand against prejudice worldwide. Your participation shows that respect knows no borders." The silence in the lobby was suffocating. Raymond's mouth opened and closed, words failing him completely. The printed slip trembled violently in his grip as Nathaniel gently took it from him, glancing at the balance before folding it carefully and handing it to Maya. "Hold on to this, sweetheart," Nathaniel said softly, though his eyes never left Raymond's face. "It's proof that you were right all along." Maya clutched the paper against Guardian's worn fur, her small voice cracking. "They didn't believe me, Daddy, I know," Nathaniel replied, his tone hardening as he addressed the crowd. "But they will now, and they'll remember what happened here today." The teller who had laughed earlier stared at her shoes, face flushed crimson. The woman in the business suit shifted uncomfortably, suddenly fascinated by her phone. The elderly man who had shaken his head looked away, unable to meet Nathaniel's piercing gaze. Raymond finally found his voice, strangled and desperate. "Mr. Caldwell, I didn't realize—" "You didn't realize?" Nathaniel's voice rose, echoing off marble walls. "You didn't realize that a child standing in front of you, asking politely to check her account, deserved basic respect? You didn't realize that humiliating a 6-year-old in front of strangers was wrong?" The crowd began to shift. Some nodded in agreement. Others pulled out phones to record. The situation was escalating rapidly, and Raymond felt his career dissolving before his eyes. "Sir, if we could perhaps discuss this in my office," Raymond began, reaching toward Nathaniel's arm. Nathaniel stepped back, his body a shield between Raymond and Maya. "No, what happened here happened publicly. The response will be public too." A security guard approached cautiously, hand on his radio. "Mr. Caldwell, sir, perhaps we should—" Nathaniel raised a hand, silencing him. "What's your name?" "Officer Bradley, sir. Officer Bradley, did you witness what happened here?" The guard shifted uncomfortably, glancing at Raymond. Yes, sir. I heard Mr. Lawson say—" He paused, then straightened his shoulders, choosing integrity over politics. "I heard him accuse your daughter of theft," before checking the account. Nathaniel nodded slowly. "Thank you for your honesty." He turned back to Raymond, his voice dropping to a deadly calm. "My daughter walked into this institution carrying proof of her identity. She asked for a simple service. Instead, she was mocked, accused, and humiliated. Tell me, Mr. Lawson, is that the culture you've built here?" Raymond's face had gone from white to grey. His hands shook as he tried to form words. It was a misunderstanding. "Protocol requires—" "Protocol?" Nathaniel cut him off sharply. "What protocol requires you to laugh at a child? What protocol demands public humiliation before basic verification?" The crowd was growing. More employees emerged from back offices, drawn by the commotion. A woman with grey hair and a nameplate reading assistant manager stood frozen in the doorway, her face pale as she absorbed the scene. Nathaniel's phone buzzed. He glanced at it briefly, then looked back at Raymond with cold finality. My assistant is already contacting legal counsel. Every security camera in this building recorded what happened. Every witness here will remember. And by tomorrow morning, every news outlet in this city will know the name Raymond Lawson. Raymond's knees nearly buckled. Please, Mr. Caldwell, I have a family, a career. So did the parents who died saving my life, Nathaniel said quietly, his hand tightening on Maya's shoulder. They left me this precious child. They made me promise to protect her, to ensure she grew up knowing her worth. And you tried to strip that away from her in under 5 minutes. Maya looked up at her father, tears streaming down her cheeks, but chin still lifted with quiet dignity. Daddy, can we go home now? Soon, sweetheart. But first, everyone here needs to understand something. He raised his voice, addressing the entire lobby. My daughter's dignity is not negotiable. Her humanity is not up for debate. And anyone who thinks otherwise will learn a very painful lesson about the consequences of prejudice. Raymond backed away slowly, his career, his reputation, his entire life crumbling with each step. The assistant manager rushed forward, stammering apologies, but Nathaniel simply turned away, guiding Maya toward the door. As they reached the exit, Nathaniel paused and looked back one final time. The $10,000 check, Mr. Lawson. I expect it delivered to my office by end of business today. You made a bet. Honor it. The doors closed behind them, leaving Raymond standing in the ruins of his own making, surrounded by witnesses who would never forget what they'd seen. Outside on the sidewalk, Maya clutched her father's hand. Are they going to laugh at me again, Daddy? Nathaniel knelt down, his eyes level with hers. No, Maya, not after today. Today the whole world is going to learn your name, and they're going to remember that a little girl with a teddy bear showed more dignity than grown men with power ever could. But what Raymond Lawson didn't know was that the trembling little girl clutching her teddy bear was about to become the most talked-about child in America. The ride back to the Tribeca penthouse was quiet. Maya sat in the back seat, Guardian pressed against her chest, staring out the window as Manhattan blurred past. Nathaniel watched her in the rearview mirror, his jaw tight, his hands gripping the steering wheel with barely controlled fury. Daddy, Maya said softly, her voice small and uncertain. Why did that man think I stole? Nathaniel pulled the car into their private garage, cutting the engine before turning to face her. He unbuckled his seatbelt and climbed into the back seat, pulling her onto his lap. Some people, sweetheart, he began carefully, look at the world through a very small window. They see what they expect to see instead of what's really there. That man saw a little girl who didn't look the way he thought rich people should look, so he assumed the worst. Maya's fingers traced the worn stitching on Guardian's ear. Mama gave me this. She said Guardian would protect me. Nathaniel felt his throat tighten. Your mother was right. Guardian has protected you, just like she would have. Tell me the story again, Maya whispered, about Mama and Papa saving you. Nathaniel settled back against the seat. Maya curled in his arms and began the story she'd heard 100 times, but never tired of hearing. 4 years ago I was nobody, he said quietly. Just another finance guy working 80-hour weeks, trying to build something from nothing. Your parents, Sarah and Marcus Thompson, worked in my building. Your mama was a janitor. Your papa was a security guard. We'd nod to each other in the hallways, exchange pleasantries, nothing more. Maya's eyes were closed, but she wasn't sleeping. She was listening, absorbing every word like a lifeline to parents she barely remembered. One night, Nathaniel continued, there was a fire. Electrical fault on the 14th floor. I was working late, didn't smell the smoke until it was too late. The exits were blocked. The windows didn't open. I thought... He paused, his voice catching. I thought that was the end. But Mama and Papa came. Maya finished, her voice reverent. But your Mama and Papa came, Nathaniel echoed. They were finishing their shift on the ground floor when the alarms went off. Everyone else evacuated. But your Mama heard someone calling for help, and instead of running to safety, she and your Papa ran toward danger. They climbed 14 floors through smoke so thick they could barely breathe. They found me collapsed on the floor, unconscious from the fumes. Your papa carried me down on his back. Your mama cleared the path, breaking down doors, finding routes through the flames. We made it to the 7th floor before the stairwell collapsed behind us. The firefighters said later that if we'd been 30 seconds slower, all 3 of us would have died. As it was, your parents suffered severe smoke inhalation. The doctors said the damage to their lungs would never fully heal. Maya's small hand found his, and then I was born. And then you were born, Nathaniel agreed. 2 months later, the most beautiful, perfect little girl I'd ever seen. Your parents brought you to visit me in the hospital. Your mama put you in my arms and said, "This is hope. This is why we did it. So she could have a world where people help each other." But they got sick, Maya said quietly. The lung damage from the fire weakened them. 2 years later, complications from pneumonia took them both within a week of each other. Nathaniel's voice was rough now, thick with grief that hadn't faded with time. Before your mama died, she made me promise something. She said, "Take care of our baby. Make sure she knows she's loved. Make sure she knows her worth. And never let anyone tell her she's less than extraordinary." "So that's why the card is mine," Maya said, understanding dawning in her eyes. "That's why the card is yours," Nathaniel confirmed. "When your parents died, they had a small life insurance policy. $10,000. I invested it. I grew it. Every business deal I've made since then, I've put a portion into an account with your name on it. Today, that account has over $80 million. Maya's eyes went wide. $80 million? Nathaniel smiled, despite the heaviness in his chest. $80 million that belongs to you, not because of me, because your parents saved my life. And I promised to build you a future worthy of their sacrifice. But that man today, he didn't care about Mama and Papa's sacrifice." "No," Nathaniel agreed, his voice hardening. "He didn't. He saw a little black girl in a simple dress and decided she couldn't possibly belong. He let prejudice blind him to the truth." Maya was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then she looked up at her father with eyes older than her 6 years. "Are we going to make him sorry?" Nathaniel met her gaze steadily. "We're going to make sure what happened to you never happens to another child. We're going to shine a light so bright on that bank's behavior that they'll have no choice but to change." "How?" "Tomorrow," Nathaniel said, "we're going to tell your story. The whole story." The card Maya held wasn't just any account. It was a promise her dying parents made Nathan fulfill. A promise Raymond had just mocked in front of 50 witnesses. They climbed out of the car and took the private elevator up to the penthouse. The apartment was quiet, filled with afternoon sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson River. Diane Fletcher, Nathaniel's assistant, was waiting in the living room, her laptop open, her expression grim. "It's already started," she said without preamble. "Someone in the bank recorded the confrontation. It's on social media. 20,000 views in the last hour." Nathaniel nodded slowly. "Good, let it spread. Tomorrow we hold a press conference." Diane hesitated. "Nathan, are you sure you want to expose Maya to that kind of scrutiny? The media can be vicious." "I'm not exposing her," Nathaniel replied firmly. "I'm protecting her. The story is already out there. Better we control the narrative than let Raymond Lawson's version become the truth." Maya tugged on his sleeve. "Daddy, what's a press conference? It's where we tell reporters what really happened. Where we make sure everyone knows that you were brave and right, and that the adults who should have protected you failed. Will there be cameras?" "Yes, sweetheart, lots of cameras." Maya considered this, then nodded solemnly. "Okay, if it helps other kids, then okay." Nathaniel knelt down, eye level with his daughter. "You don't have to do this. I can handle it alone." But Maya shook her head. Her small jaw set with determination that reminded him painfully of her mother. "No, it happened to me. I should be there." Diane looked between them, then closed her laptop. "I'll schedule it for tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. That gives the morning shows time to promote it, and the afternoon outlets time to cover it live. And Diane," Nathaniel added, "make sure every major outlet gets an invitation. I want the world to see Maya's face and hear her story." After Diane left, Nathaniel made Maya her favorite dinner, macaroni and cheese with cut-up hot dogs, but she barely touched it. I'm not hungry, Daddy. I know, sweetheart, but you need to eat something. She pushed her plate away, tears suddenly streaming down her face. Why did he laugh at me? What did I do wrong? Nathaniel pulled her into his arms, holding her as sobs racked her small body. You did nothing wrong, not one single thing. That man's cruelty says everything about him and nothing about you. But he made everyone laugh. Everyone thought I was bad. Then everyone was wrong, and tomorrow we're going to make sure they know it. He carried her to bed early, tucking Guardian under her arm and reading her favorite story about a brave little mouse who stood up to a lion. By the time he finished, she was asleep, her face still streaked with tears. Nathaniel stood in the doorway watching her breathe, this precious child who had been entrusted to his care, and felt rage burn cold and bright in his chest. Tomorrow, he whispered to the darkness. The reckoning begins. By morning, the video had gone viral. 3 million views, 50,000 comments, hashtags trending nationwide. Nathaniel sat at his desk, scrolling through the footage someone had posted. The angle was clear, the audio crisp. Raymond's voice boomed through his speakers. That card belongs to someone important, not someone like you. The comments section was a battlefield. Justice Warrior 2024. This is disgusting. That manager should be fired immediately. Truth Seeker. There's always two sides to a story. Maybe the kid really did steal it. Mom off 3 Boston. I'm literally crying. No child should ever be treated like this. Banking Insider. I work at Caldwell Trust. This isn't the first time Raymond Lawson has done something like this, just the first time it was recorded. That last comment made Nathaniel pause. He screenshot it, forwarded it to Diane with a note. Find this person. Offer them protection if they're willing to talk publicly. His phone rang. Gerald Pierce, the chairman of Caldwell Trust's board of directors. Nathan, we need to talk. I agree, Nathaniel replied coolly. 10 a.m. press conference. You're welcome to attend. This is getting out of hand. Can't we handle this internally? You had your chance to handle it internally, Nathaniel said. That chance ended the moment Raymond Lawson accused my 6-year-old daughter of theft in front of 50 witnesses. He was clearly mistaken about... Mistaken? Nathaniel's voice rose. Gerald, I've known you for 15 years. We've done business together. I've trusted this institution with billions of dollars, and your employee publicly humiliated my child based on nothing but the color of her skin and the simplicity of her dress. Gerald was quiet for a long moment. Then, more quietly, what do you want? I want accountability. I want reform. And I want the world to see that Caldwell Trust either stands for dignity or stands for nothing. Raymond Lawson has already been suspended pending investigation. Not enough. What more do you want? Gerald's voice was strained. I want a public apology. I want mandatory training for every employee. I want an independent oversight committee. And I want Raymond Lawson gone. Not suspended. Gone. Nathan, his career ended the moment he decided a child was guilty before checking the facts. The only question now is whether your institution will be complicit in his prejudice or accountable for it. Gerald exhaled heavily. I'll call an emergency board meeting for this afternoon. Do that. And Gerald, make sure you watch the press conference. You'll want to know exactly what story the world is hearing. Nathaniel hung up and found Maya in the kitchen, still in her pajamas. Clutching Guardian while Diane tried to convince her to eat breakfast. Good morning, sweetheart. How did you sleep? Maya shrugged, pushing cereal around her bowl. I dreamed about the bank. Everyone was still laughing. Nathaniel sat beside her, his heart aching. They won't be laughing after today, I promise you that. At 9:30, Diane helped Maya into a simple blue dress. Her hair pulled back in 2 puffs, her face scrubbed clean. She looked every inch the innocent child she was, which was precisely the point. Remember, Diane coached gently, you don't have to say anything if you don't want to. Just sitting beside your dad is enough. But Maya shook her head. I want to tell them. I want to tell them what he said. The press conference was set up in the lobby of Nathaniel's corporate headquarters. Cameras lined the back wall. Reporters filled every seat. The room buzzed with anticipation. Nathaniel walked in, holding Maya's hand. Flashbulbs exploded. Cameras whirred. Questions erupted from every direction. Mr. Caldwell, is it true your daughter was accused of theft? How do you respond to allegations that you're blowing this out of proportion? What do you want from Caldwell Trust? Nathaniel raised a hand, silencing them. He stepped to the podium, Maya beside him in a chair just visible to the cameras. Thank you all for coming, he began, his voice steady and clear. Yesterday, my 6-year-old daughter walked into a branch of Caldwell Trust and Banking, carrying a legitimate platinum card with her name on it. She asked politely to check her account balance. What should have been a routine transaction became an act of public humiliation. He paused, letting the words sink in. The branch manager, Raymond Lawson, did not verify her identity. He did not check her account. Instead, he accused her of theft. He mocked her in front of a room full of strangers. He made a public spectacle of her dignity. And why? Because she is 6 years old. Because she is black. Because her dress was simple and her teddy bear was worn. Because she did not look like his preconceived notion of what wealth should look like. The room was silent now, every reporter leaning forward. Let me be clear about something, Nathaniel continued, his voice hardening. The platinum card Maya carried represents more than money. It represents a promise made by her parents before they died, saving my life 4 years ago. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Pens scratched furiously across notepads. Sarah and Marcus Thompson were heroes. They ran into a burning building when everyone else ran out. They carried me 14 floors through smoke and flames. They saved my life at the cost of their own health. 2 years later, lung damage from that fire took them both. Before she died, Maya's mother put her daughter in my arms and said, "Take care of our baby. Make sure she knows her worth." Yesterday, Raymond Lawson tried to strip away that worth. He tried to teach my daughter that her appearance matters more than her humanity. Nathaniel's hand found Maya's shoulder, but he failed, because Maya stood tall. She insisted on her truth even when adults laughed. She maintained her dignity even when she was mocked. A reporter called out, "Mr. Caldwell, what do you want from the bank?" "I want systemic change. I want accountability. I want every employee trained in implicit bias. I want an independent committee to review complaints, and I want Raymond Lawson removed permanently." Another reporter, "Isn't that excessive for one mistake?" "One mistake," Nathaniel's eyes flashed. "How many times has Raymond Lawson done this when cameras weren't watching? How many people has he humiliated who didn't have my resources to fight back?" He gestured to Maya. "My daughter has a voice today because I have money and power. But what about the single mother who gets dismissed at a loan desk? The elderly man treated with impatience because he's confused? The immigrant spoken to slowly because of an accent? Where is their press conference?" The room erupted with questions again, but Nathaniel raised his hand. "Maya, would you like to say something?" Every camera swung toward the small girl. She stood up slowly, stepped to the microphone which Diane adjusted down to her height, and spoke in a clear, quiet voice that somehow carried through the entire room. "I told him it was mine. I said, please. I said my daddy gave it to me. But he didn't believe me. He laughed and everyone else laughed too." She paused, her small hands gripping the podium. "I don't want other kids to feel like I felt. Like they're bad when they're not." Tears streamed down multiple reporters' faces. The moment was captured from a dozen angles, destined to play on loop across every news channel in the country. "Thank you, Maya," Nathaniel said softly. Guiding her back to her chair, he faced the cameras one final time. "This story is not just about my daughter. It is about every person who has ever been judged by their appearance instead of their character. Every person who has been dismissed because they didn't fit someone's narrow expectations. That ends today, at Caldwell Trust and everywhere else." The press conference dissolved into chaos. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras swarmed. But Nathaniel simply took Maya's hand and walked out, leaving them with an image that would define the story. A powerful man and a small girl, united in dignity. Within hours, the footage was everywhere. Network news, cable channels, social media. And the narrative was unified. Raymond Lawson had humiliated an innocent child, and Nathaniel Caldwell was demanding justice. Within hours, the story exploded. #Justice for Maya trended worldwide. News anchors replayed Maya's tearful statement on loop. Think pieces flooded editorial pages. By noon, protests had begun outside Caldwell Trust branches across the city. At the flagship Manhattan location, where Maya had been humiliated, over 200 people lined the sidewalk. They carried signs, "Children deserve dignity." "Banking while black shouldn't be a crime." "I stand with Maya." Diane showed Nathaniel the live feeds on her tablet. "This is bigger than we anticipated. There are demonstrations in Boston, Chicago, Los Angeles. People are closing their accounts in solidarity." "Good," Nathaniel replied. Though his expression was grim, change requires pressure. "Nathan," Diane said carefully, "some of these protesters are calling for boycotts. The bank's stock dropped 8% this morning. Gerald Pierce has called 4 times. Let him call." Nathaniel returned his attention to Maya, who was coloring at the coffee table. Her drawing showed a small girl holding hands with a tall man, surrounded by people holding signs. "What are you drawing, sweetheart?" Maya held up the picture proudly. "Us, and all the people who believe me now." "That's beautiful." Nathaniel felt his chest tighten. "Why don't you add your mama and papa watching from above?" She nodded seriously and began drawing 2 figures in the sky, stick bodies with wings. The TV in the background showed live coverage. A young reporter stood outside the Manhattan branch, microphone in hand. "The scene here has been peaceful but passionate. Protesters range from parents with young children to elderly activists who say this reminds them of civil rights-era discrimination. The common thread is a demand for accountability. Let's talk to some of them." The camera panned to a black woman holding a toddler. "My daughter is Maya's age. When I saw that video, I thought about every time someone's followed me in a store, watched me too closely, assumed I couldn't afford what I was buying. It has to stop. If it can happen to a billionaire's daughter, imagine what ordinary families face." Another protester, an elderly white man, stepped forward. "I'm 73 years old. I watched the civil rights movement. I thought we'd come further than this. That video was a wake-up call. We've still got a long way to go." A young Asian woman spoke next. "This isn't just about race. It's about power and assumptions. It's about who gets believed and who gets questioned. Maya deserved better. We all deserve better." Nathaniel's phone buzzed. A text from Gerald Pierce. "Board meeting at 2 p.m. Your presence requested." He typed back, "I'll be there, with Maya." Gerald's response was immediate. "Is that wise?" "The board members might not." Nathaniel cut him off. "Maya stays with me. If the board can't handle the presence of the child they failed to protect, that tells me everything I need to know about their priorities." At 1:30, Nathaniel dressed in his most severe charcoal suit. He helped Maya into a pink dress her mother had bought her years ago, now a bit short, but still her favorite. "Why do I need to go, Daddy?" Maya asked as he brushed her hair. "Because the people who run the bank need to see you. Need to remember that you're a real little girl, not just a problem they can manage away." "Will that mean Man be there?" Nathaniel paused, meeting her eyes in the mirror. "Raymond Lawson has been suspended. He won't be at this meeting, but there will be other people who might try to defend what he did. I need you to understand that their discomfort is not your responsibility. You did nothing wrong." Maya nodded slowly. "Guardian comes with me, always." They arrived at Caldwell Trust headquarters at 1:55. The building's lobby was packed with protesters who'd moved from the branch location. Security tried to clear a path, but the crowd pressed close, calling out support. "Mr. Caldwell, we stand with you. Justice for Maya. Hold them accountable." Nathaniel raised a hand in acknowledgement but didn't stop moving. He kept Maya close, one hand on her shoulder, Guardian clutched in her arms. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor was silent. Maya's small hand found his, squeezing tight. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I know, sweetheart. But remember what your mama used to say. Courage isn't being unafraid. It's being afraid and doing the right thing anyway." The boardroom doors opened. 12 faces turned toward them, all middle-aged or older. 10 men, 2 women, 11 white. 1 black. The weight of establishment power filled the room like humidity. Gerald Pierce stood at the head of the table. "Nathan, thank you for coming." His eyes flicked to Maya, discomfort clear in his expression. "And Miss Caldwell." Nathaniel guided Maya to a seat at the far end of the table, then remained standing. Let's not waste time on pleasantries, Gerald. You've seen the protests. You've seen the coverage. You know why we're here. A man in his 60s with silver hair cleared his throat. Mr. Caldwell, no one disputes that Mr. Lawson's behavior was inappropriate, but the response has been disproportionate. Stock prices have fallen, customers are leaving. The damage to our reputation... The damage to your reputation? Nathaniel's voice was ice. Let me tell you about damage. My 6-year-old daughter woke up crying last night because she dreamed everyone was still laughing at her. That's damage. The fact that she now questions whether people will believe her based on how she looks, that's damage. A woman with sharp features spoke up. We understand your anger, Mr. Caldwell, truly, but calling for Mr. Lawson's termination without a full investigation sets a dangerous precedent. He accused a child of theft without evidence. Nathaniel cut her off. The investigation was completed the moment that video went viral. There's nothing ambiguous about what happened. Gerald raised both hands, trying to moderate. The board has reviewed the security footage. We all agree that Raymond's conduct was unacceptable. He's been suspended without pay pending a formal review. We're prepared to issue a public apology. Not enough. Then what do you want? The silver-haired man's voice had an edge now. Nathaniel stepped forward, his presence dominating the room. I want him terminated today. I want a public statement acknowledging systemic failures. I want mandatory unconscious bias training for every single employee. I want an independent oversight committee with the power to investigate complaints. And I want a scholarship fund established in Sarah and Marcus Thompson's names for underprivileged children. The board members exchanged glances. Several shifted uncomfortably. That's a significant list of demands, Gerald said carefully. They're not demands. They're necessary changes. You can implement them voluntarily and demonstrate leadership, or I can withdraw every dollar I have invested in this institution, take my story to every media outlet that will listen, and watch your stock crater. Your choice. Maya's small voice broke the tension. Excuse me. Every head turned. She stood up, guardian tucked under one arm, her chin trembling but lifted high. My daddy says I don't have to talk if I don't want to, but I want to tell you something. Gerald's expression softened. Of course, Maya. Please. That man yesterday? He made me feel small. Like I didn't matter. Like my mama and papa's sacrifice didn't matter. She paused, tears streaming down her face, but her voice steady. I know I'm just a kid. But even kids deserve respect. If you can't promise to treat people with respect, then this bank doesn't deserve my daddy's money or anybody else's. The silence that followed was profound. Several board members looked away, unable to meet her eyes. One woman dabbed at her face with a tissue. Gerald cleared his throat roughly. Thank you, Maya. That was very brave. He looked around the table. All in favor of accepting Mr. Caldwell's proposed reforms and terminating Raymond Lawson's employment effective immediately. Hands rose slowly, one by one. Within 30 seconds, the vote was unanimous. Gerald nodded. It's done. We'll have the official statement ready within the hour. Nathaniel pulled Maya close. One more thing. I want Raymond Lawson to apologize to Maya personally, in writing. A real apology, not corporate speak. Done. As they stood to leave, the black board member approached. She was perhaps 50, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Mr. Caldwell, she said quietly. Miss Maya, what happened was inexcusable. But I want you to know that some of us have been pushing for exactly these kinds of reforms for years. This moment, painful as it was, might finally create the change we've needed. Nathaniel studied her, then nodded. Then help us make sure it sticks. On the elevator ride down, Maya leaned against him. Did we win, Daddy? He kissed the top of her head. We took a first step toward winning. The real victory comes when what happened to you can never happen to another child. Nathan stood before the cameras, Maya beside him, and said the 5 words that would destroy Raymond's career. The world will remember this. The statement from Caldwell Trust went out at 3 p.m. It was stronger than Nathaniel had expected, which meant Gerald Pierce was truly frightened of the public backlash. Official statement from Caldwell Trust and Banking. We deeply apologize to Maya Caldwell and her father, Nathaniel Caldwell. for the unacceptable treatment she received at our Manhattan branch. Mr. Raymond Lawson has been terminated effective immediately. We are implementing comprehensive reforms, including mandatory implicit bias training, an independent oversight committee, and a scholarship fund honoring Sarah and Marcus Thompson. We failed in our duty to treat every customer with dignity. We commit to doing better. Within an hour, the protests outside Caldwell branches began to shift. Some demonstrators went home, satisfied with the swift response. Others remained, saying they wanted to see action, not just words. At the Tribeca penthouse, Nathaniel's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Media requests, interview offers, book deal proposals. He ignored them all and focused on Maya. She was quieter than usual, pushing food around her plate at dinner, staring out the window at the city lights. "Talk to me, sweetheart. What's on your mind?" Maya set down her fork, her small brow furrowed. "Are people going to be mad at me forever?" Nathaniel moved to the chair beside her, turning it to face her directly. "No one is mad at you, Maya, not one single person. But that man lost his job because of me." "No," Nathaniel said firmly, taking her hands in his. "That man lost his job because of his own choices. You walked into a bank and asked to check your account. That's all. Everything that happened after was his decision, not yours. But if I hadn't gone in, then he would have humiliated someone else, someone who might not have had a father to stand up for them. You didn't cause this, Maya. You revealed something that was already there." She was quiet for a long moment, processing. "Then, Daddy, will people always look at me and think bad things?" The question pierced him. He pulled her onto his lap, holding her close. "Some people might. But that says everything about them and nothing about you. Your mama used to tell me that other people's opinions are like clouds. They pass through the sky, but they don't change who you are underneath." "I miss Mama," Maya whispered. "I know, sweetheart. I do too. Every single day. Do you think she's proud of me?" Nathaniel felt tears prick his eyes. "She's so proud of you she could burst. You stood tall, Maya. You told the truth even when adults were laughing. That takes more courage than most grown people will ever have." Maya sniffled, wiping her nose on her sleeve. "Guardian thinks I'm brave too. Guardian is very wise." They sat together as the city darkened outside, father and daughter finding comfort in each other's presence while the world churned with their story. Meanwhile, across the city, Raymond Lawson sat in his apartment surrounded by darkness. He hadn't turned on the lights, hadn't answered his phone, hadn't moved from his couch in hours. The termination letter had arrived by courier at noon, effective immediately. No severance, no references. 23 years of service erased in a single afternoon. His phone buzzed again. Another message from his wife. "Where are you? The kids are asking questions, the neighbors are talking, come home." But Raymond couldn't move. He stared at the TV. Muted footage of protests playing on loop, signs with Maya's name, chants calling for justice. His own face displayed with the word "fired" stamped across it in red letters. How did this happen? He'd made a simple assumption, a reasonable one, given the circumstances. A child that age, dressed like that, carrying a platinum card? Anyone would have questioned it. Anyone. But even as he tried to justify it to himself, he heard Maya's small voice echoing in his memory. "I told him it was mine. I said please. I said my daddy gave it to me. But he didn't believe me. She'd told the truth. He'd chosen not to listen." A knock at the door made him jump. He ignored it. The knocking continued, more insistent. "Raymond, I know you're in there. Open up." He recognized the voice. Philip Harding, an attorney he'd met at various banking conferences over the years. Against his better judgment, Raymond opened the door. Philip Harding strode in, expensive suit, immaculate, briefcase in hand. He took one look at Raymond's disheveled appearance and shook his head. "This is worse than I thought. Pull yourself together. We have work to do." "What work?" Raymond's voice was hollow. "I'm finished, terminated, blacklisted. My career is over." Philip set his briefcase on the coffee table, clicking it open with precise movements. "Your career at Caldwell Trust is over. But this story, this narrative that you're some kind of villain, that we can change, Raymond stared at him. How? Public perception is malleable. Right now, everyone sees you as the bad guy because that's the only version of events being told. We need to tell your side. What side? I accused a child of theft. It's on video. Philip smiled coldly. Context is everything. You followed protocol. You were protecting the institution. You couldn't have known about the girl's background. Nathaniel Caldwell is using his money and influence to destroy an ordinary working man who made an honest mistake. That's not what happened, isn't it? Philip leaned forward. You've worked in banking for over 2 decades. How many times have you stopped fraud, prevented theft, protected customer assets? Dozens of times. Exactly, you're not a racist. You're a dedicated professional who made a judgment call that happened to be wrong. The response has been completely disproportionate. A good man's life is being destroyed to satisfy a billionaire's ego. Raymond felt something stir in his chest. Not quite hope, but something close to it. Could it work? We need to move quickly, Philip continued. I have contacts at several media outlets. We can get your story out there. Show the human cost of this mob justice. Make people question whether Caldwell's reaction was really about his daughter or about flexing his power. What do you want from me? Your cooperation and a retainer fee. $50,000. Raymond laughed bitterly. I just lost my job. I don't have $50,000. Then we'll figure something else out. Philip's eyes glinted. This case could be career-defining for me, and reputation-saving for you. We both have something to gain. Raymond looked at the muted TV, at the protesters, at his own face being torn apart in the court of public opinion. What did he have to lose? Okay, he said quietly. Tell me what to do. Philip smiled. First, we get you cleaned up and in front of a camera. Then we start rewriting this narrative. As thousands marched outside Caldwell Trust chanting Maya's name, Raymond sat in his office, watching his world crumble and plotting revenge. Back at the penthouse, Nathaniel tucked Maya into bed. She clutched Guardian close, her eyes heavy. Daddy, she murmured sleepily, thank you for believing me. Always, sweetheart, always. He stayed until her breathing evened out, then returned to the living room where Diane was waiting with her tablet. We have a problem, she said without preamble. Raymond Lawson has hired Philip Harding. Nathaniel's expression darkened. Harding. The attorney who defended that pharmaceutical executive in the price gouging scandal. The same. He's aggressive, ruthless, and very good at spinning narratives. If he's taking this case, he sees an angle. Let him try. The video speaks for itself. Diane hesitated. Nathan, Harding doesn't fight with facts. He fights with emotion. He'll paint Raymond as a victim, you as a bully. He'll find every mistake you've ever made and drag it into the light. Then he'll find I've lived a pretty clean life. No one's life is that clean, not at your level of wealth and power. Nathaniel stood, walking to the window. The city stretched before him, millions of lives intersecting in ways both visible and hidden. Somewhere out there, Raymond Lawson was planning his counterattack. Keep monitoring the situation, he told Diane, and start compiling everything we have on Harding. If he's going to make this a war, I need to know my enemy. After Diane left, Nathaniel returned to Maya's room. She was still sleeping, Guardian tucked under her chin, her face peaceful in a way it hadn't been while awake. He whispered to the darkness, I promised your mother I'd protect you. Whatever comes next, that promise stands. Outside, the city hummed with traffic and life, and the beginning of a battle that would test everything Nathaniel had built. The war for justice was only beginning. The next morning brought unexpected developments. Nathaniel woke to find his phone flooded with news alerts. Breaking, bank manager claims racial bias accusations are unfair and destructive. Raymond Lawson breaks. Silence. I was following protocol. Attorney claims Caldwell. Using wealth to destroy working-class man. He scrolled through article after article, his jaw tightening with each headline. Philip Harding had moved faster than expected. One article featured a photo of Raymond looking haggard and remorseful, sitting in what appeared to be a modest living room. The interview was everywhere. Reporter, Mr. Lawson, you've been portrayed as the villain in this story. What's your response? Raymond, I made a mistake, I admit that. but to lose my entire career, my reputation, my ability to provide for my family. The punishment doesn't fit the crime. I was doing my job, trying to protect the bank's assets. Children that age don't typically carry platinum cards. I ask questions that any responsible manager would ask. Reporter: Mr. Caldwell says you accused his daughter of theft without checking her account first. Raymond: I was in the process of verification when he stormed in. The narrative that I immediately assumed she was a criminal is false. I was following standard protocol for unusual account access. Reporter: What about your comment that the card belonged to someone important, not someone like her? Raymond: Taken out of context. I meant someone of that age. A child. The racial component that's been imposed on my words was never my intent. Nathaniel set his phone down, his mind racing. It was masterfully done. Harding had positioned Raymond as a working-class victim of billionaire overreach, reframed his words to remove racial connotation, and portrayed the termination as excessive. Diane arrived at 8 a.m., her expression grim. It's working. Social media sentiment is shifting. People are starting to question whether your response was proportionate. Hashtag Justice for Raymond is trending. Nathaniel poured himself coffee, his movements controlled. What's our counter? The truth. We have the full video, we have witness statements, we can... No, Nathaniel interrupted. We don't engage directly, that's what Harding wants. A back and forth that keeps the story alive and makes it seem like there are two equally valid sides. Then what do? We let the institution speak. Caldwell Trust made their decision based on the facts. We don't need to justify it. But Nathan, trust me. Harding is good, but he's playing a short game. Public outrage is fleeting. Institutional change is permanent. We focus on the reforms, not the controversy. Maya wandered into the kitchen, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Why are you talking so serious? Nathaniel knelt down to her level. Just grown-up stuff, sweetheart. Nothing for you to worry about. Is it about the bank man? He hesitated, then decided on honesty. Some people are trying to make excuses for what he did, but we know the truth, and the truth always wins eventually. Always, always. But even as he said it, Nathaniel felt the weight of uncertainty. Truth didn't always win quickly. Sometimes it took years. Sometimes it required sacrifice he wasn't sure he was willing to make. That afternoon, Gerald Pierce called. His voice was strained. Nathan, the board is concerned. This Raymond Lawson interview is generating sympathy. Some shareholders are questioning whether we overreacted. The board voted unanimously to terminate him. Under pressure, under threat. You made it very clear what would happen if we didn't comply. I made it clear what should happen when an employee violates basic standards of human decency. There's a difference, Gerald sighed. I'm not arguing the merits, I'm telling you the political reality. Half the board wants to stand firm. The other half wants to offer Lawson a settlement to make this go away quietly. Nathaniel's voice went cold. If you reinstate him or pay him off, I will withdraw every dollar I have invested in Caldwell Trust. That's not a threat. That's a fact. We're not talking about reinstatement. Just a settlement. 6-month severance, an NDA, make it go away. No, you don't reward cruelty with a golden parachute. He made his choices. He lives with the consequences. You're being unreasonable. I'm being principled. There's a difference. After hanging up, Nathaniel found himself staring at a photograph on his desk. Sarah and Marcus Thompson holding infant Maya between them, their faces glowing with love and hope. He'd kept the photo in his office since they died, a daily reminder of the promise he'd made. What would you do? He whispered to their frozen smiles. What would you tell me? But they had no answers. Only Maya did, and she was 6 years old, trying to make sense of a world that judged her before knowing her. That evening, another story broke. This one caught Nathaniel off guard. Exclusive. 3 former employees claim pattern of discrimination at Caldwell Trust. He read the article with growing interest. 3 people, all minorities, all former Caldwell Trust employees, had come forward with stories of being passed over for promotions, subjected to microaggressions, treated as less competent than white colleagues. One woman, a former loan officer named Keisha Williams, described being questioned extensively about her qualifications despite having an MBA from Columbia. Another, Marcus Chen, detailed being asked repeatedly if he was sure he wanted to work in customer-facing roles, despite his stellar performance reviews. The third, Aisha Mohammed, recounted being told her hijab might make customers uncomfortable and pressure to remove it. All three had filed complaints through internal channels. All three complaints had been dismissed or minimized. All three had eventually left the company. This wasn't about Raymond Lawson anymore. This was about institutional culture. Nathaniel called Diane immediately. Find these three people. Offer them whatever support they need. Legal, financial, platform. Their stories need to be amplified. You want to expand this? I want the truth told completely. Maya's humiliation wasn't an isolated incident. It was a symptom of a disease. If we're going to heal the institution, we need to cut out all the rot, not just the most visible piece. That night, as Maya slept, Nathaniel sat in his study drafting a statement. Not for the press, for himself. A clarification of purpose. I am not fighting Raymond Lawson. I am fighting a culture that allowed Raymond Lawson to thrive for 23 years. I am fighting assumptions that measure worth by appearance. I am fighting silence that protects institutions over individuals. Maya's story is not unique. It is simply the one that was recorded. How many others were there? How many will there be if we accept half measures and move on? This is not about revenge. It is about transformation. He didn't publish it. Not yet. But writing it crystallized his resolve. Philip Harding could spin whatever narrative he wanted. Sympathetic interviews meant nothing against institutional truth. The next morning brought a surprise visitor. Diane announced him with obvious hesitation. Detective Michael Brennan is here. He says it's urgent. Nathaniel met the detective in his office. Brennan was in his 50s, with tired eyes and the bearing of someone who'd seen too much. Mr. Caldwell, thank you for seeing me. I'll be direct. We've received credible threats against your daughter. Nathaniel's blood went cold. What kind of threats? Online posts, some specific, some general. People angry about Raymond Lawson losing his job. Most are probably empty bluster, but we can't take chances. I'm recommending increased security. Done. Whatever you need. Brennan pulled out a folder. There's something else. One of the threatening messages was sent from an IP address that traces back to Philip Harding's law office. Harding himself? We don't know. Could be him, could be an employee, could be someone using his network. But given that he's representing Lawson, we thought you should know. Nathaniel's hands clenched into fists. Are you investigating? Already started. But I wanted to warn you. This situation is escalating. People are choosing sides. Some of them are unstable. After Brennan left, Nathaniel went to Maya's room. She was building a fortress with blocks, guardian standing guard at the entrance. Maya, sweetheart, we need to talk about something. She looked up, instantly reading his serious tone. What's wrong? Some people are very angry right now. About what happened at the bank. So we're going to have extra security for a while, more people helping keep us safe. Are they going to hurt me? Nathaniel pulled her close. No one is going to hurt you, I promise. But we're being extra careful, okay? She nodded against his chest. Okay, Daddy. But as he held her, Nathaniel felt the weight of his promise. He'd already failed to protect her from humiliation. Could he protect her from something worse? That evening, the news broke that Philip Harding's office was under investigation for threatening messages. Harding immediately went on the offensive, claiming it was a setup, political persecution, an attempt to silence Raymond's legitimate defense. The story was spiraling in directions Nathaniel hadn't anticipated. What started as accountability for one man's cruelty was becoming a proxy war for larger cultural battles. He stood at his window, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars, and wondered how far this would go before it finally ended. Philip Harding's face filled every screen by morning. He'd called an emergency press conference, positioning himself and Raymond as victims of a vindictive billionaire with unlimited resources. Mr. Caldwell has weaponized his wealth and influence to destroy an ordinary working man who made a simple mistake, Harding declared, his voice ringing with righteous indignation. Now he's using law enforcement to intimidate us. Threatening messages traced to my office. Please. This is manufactured evidence designed to silence legitimate legal defense. The camera cut to Raymond, sitting beside him, looking appropriately wounded and defiant. "I'm not backing down. What happened was a misunderstanding. I've lost my livelihood, my family is suffering, and for what? Because I asked questions that any responsible manager would ask?" Nathaniel watched from his office, Diane beside him, both analyzing the performance with professional detachment. "He's good," Diane admitted. "He's reframing this as David versus Goliath. Making you the villain. Let him try." Nathaniel's voice was calm. "Every second he spends attacking me is a second he's not addressing the institutional failures those 3 former employees exposed." Speaking of which, she held up her tablet. "Keisha Williams, Marcus Chen, and Aisha Mohammed have all agreed to televised interviews. They're ready to tell their stories publicly. Schedule them. Make sure the outlets know this is about pattern and practice, not isolated incident." "Nathan," Diane's voice softened, "are you sure you want to expand this? The more people who come forward, the bigger this gets. Maya's already dealing with so much, which is exactly why we can't stop at half measures. If we settle for Raymond getting fired and everyone moving on, nothing changes. The next Maya will face the same assumptions." The intercom buzzed. Diane answered it, then looked at Nathaniel with surprise. "Gerald Pierce is here. He says it's urgent and unofficial. Send him in." Gerald entered looking 10 years older than when this started. His usual polish was absent, tie loosened, hair slightly disheveled. "Nathan," he said without preamble, "we need to talk. Off the record. There's no such thing as off the record between us anymore." Gerald sat down heavily. "Fine. On the record then. The board is fracturing. Half want to support your reforms completely. The other half thinks we've overreacted and this whole situation has spiraled out of control. Which half do you belong to?" Gerald met his eyes steadily. "I think we did the right thing terminating Raymond, but I also think this public battle is destroying the institution. Stock prices are down 18%. Major clients are pulling accounts. And now with these former employees coming forward, we're looking at potential lawsuits that could cost us hundreds of millions. So you want to settle. Buy their silence. I want to stop the bleeding." "Yes." Nathaniel leaned back in his chair. "Here's what I want you to understand, Gerald. This institution has been bleeding for years. You just never noticed because the blood wasn't yours. Those 3 employees, their careers were damaged, their confidence eroded, their potential wasted. Where was your concern about bleeding then?" Gerald's jaw tightened. "I can't fix the past. I can only manage the present, then manage it by doing the right thing. Implement the reforms. Settle with those former employees fairly. Create real accountability structures. Stop protecting the institution and start protecting the people it's supposed to serve. And if the board votes against that?" Nathaniel's eyes hardened. "Then you'll have to decide what kind of leader you want to be, the kind who follows majority opinion, or the kind who has the courage to stand on principle even when it's unpopular." After Gerald left, Nathaniel found Maya in the kitchen with their housekeeper Maria, making cookies. Flour dusted her nose, and Guardian sat propped on the counter watching. "Daddy, look, we're making chocolate chip." He smiled despite the weight on his shoulders. "Those are beautiful, sweetheart." Maria, a woman in her 60s who'd worked for the family since Maya was born, caught his eye. "She's been quiet today," she said softly in Spanish, "asking questions about why people are angry." Nathaniel's chest tightened. What kind of questions? If she did something wrong? If people hate her? He moved to Maya immediately, kneeling beside her. "Can we talk for a minute?" She set down her cookie cutter, suddenly serious. "Did I mess up the cookies?" "No, mi amor, the cookies are perfect, but Maria says you're worried people are angry with you." Maya's lower lip trembled. "I saw the TV. That man is crying. His family is sad. Is it because of me?" Nathaniel took her flour-dusted hands in his. "Listen to me carefully. That man is sad because of choices he made, not because of anything you did. You went to a bank. You asked to check your account, that's all. Everything else, every single thing that happened after, was about adults making decisions. None of it is your fault. But if I hadn't gone in that day, then he would have hurt someone else. Someone who maybe wouldn't have had anyone to stand up for them. You revealing what he did? That's not causing harm." That's exposing harm that was already there. She processed this quietly. Then, do you think Mama would be proud of me? Your Mama, Nathaniel said, his voice thick with emotion, would be so proud of you she'd be singing it from the rooftops. She'd tell everyone about her brave daughter who stood up for truth. Maya managed a small smile. Even when I'm scared? Especially when you're scared. That's what courage is. That afternoon, the first of the 3 former employees went public. Keisha Williams sat across from a national news anchor, her posture straight, her voice steady. I worked at Caldwell Trust for 6 years, she said. I have an MBA from Columbia. I consistently exceeded my performance targets, but I was passed over for promotion 3 times. Each time, the position went to a white colleague with less experience. The anchor leaned forward. Did you file complaints? Multiple times. I was told I needed to be more patient, that I was being too aggressive in seeking advancement. Meanwhile, white colleagues who advocated for themselves were called ambitious and rewarded. Do you think what happened to Maya Caldwell is connected to your experience? Keisha nodded slowly. It's the same pattern. Assumptions based on appearance, the belief that certain people don't belong in certain spaces. Maya carried a platinum card and was accused of theft. I carried an Ivy League degree and was treated as less competent. Different manifestations of the same prejudice. The interview went viral immediately. By evening, #CaldwellCulture was trending alongside Justice for Maya. Marcus Chen's interview followed the next day, then Aisha Mohammed's. Each story added another layer, painting a picture of an institution where bias had flourished in the shadows for years. Philip Harding tried to counter, arguing that these were disgruntled former employees looking for settlement money. But the weight of multiple consistent stories was harder to dismiss than a single incident. That night, Nathaniel received an unexpected call. Unknown number. He answered cautiously. Caldwell. A woman's voice, hesitant but determined. Mr. Caldwell? My name is Janet Reed. I'm a current teller at the Manhattan branch. I was there the day your daughter came in. Nathaniel sat up straight. I remember you. I need to talk to someone. About Raymond. About things that happened before that day. Things I was too scared to report. I'm listening. What Janet Reed revealed over the next 30 minutes changed everything. Raymond's treatment of Maya wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a pattern she'd witnessed for 2 years. Customers profiled. Accounts scrutinized more heavily for people of color. Comments made just quietly enough to avoid being recorded. I kept a journal, Janet said. Dates, incidents, details. I was gathering evidence but didn't know what to do with it. I was afraid of losing my job. Will you go public? If you protect me, if you make sure I can't be retaliated against, done. I'll have my legal team contact you within the hour. After hanging up, Nathaniel stared at his phone. What had started as defending his daughter was uncovering institutional rot that went far deeper than he'd imagined. Diane entered with more news. Gerald Pierce just resigned. The board is in chaos. Half want to elect a reformer. The other half wants someone who'll contain the damage. Nathaniel stood walking to his window. The city spread before him, millions of lives intersecting. How many stories like Janet's existed? How many people had swallowed indignity because they had no billionaire father to fight for them? Schedule a meeting, he told Diane. I want to speak with the full board. It's time to stop managing this crisis and start embracing transformation. Mr. Caldwell, by the time we're done, you'll wish you'd stayed silent. The boardroom at Caldwell Trust had never felt more divided. Nathaniel stood at the head of the table, Maya's hand in his. He'd insisted she be present, and several board members looked distinctly uncomfortable. Thank you all for coming on short notice, Nathaniel began. I know Gerald's resignation was unexpected. But perhaps it was necessary. A woman named Elizabeth Morris, one of the board's longest-serving members, spoke up. Mr. Caldwell, bringing your daughter to a board meeting is highly irregular. So is systematic discrimination, but that's been happening for years. Nathaniel's voice was steel. Maya is here because this isn't about corporate politics. It's about human beings. And I want you all to remember that while we discuss policy and procedure, Maya stood quietly beside him, guardian tucked under her arm. Several board members couldn't meet her eyes. We've received formal complaints from 7 current and former employees in the past week, Nathaniel continued, all detailing patterns of discrimination, all describing a culture where bias flourished unchecked. This isn't about Raymond Lawson anymore. This is about institutional failure. Thomas Bennett, the board member who'd questioned Nathaniel's reforms before, leaned forward. How many of these complaints are legitimate versus people jumping on a bandwagon? Every disgruntled former employee suddenly has a discrimination story. Would you like to ask them yourself? Nathaniel gestured to the door. Because 3 of them are waiting outside. One is still a current employee who risked her career to come forward. The room stirred uncomfortably. I've invited them to address you directly, if you have the courage to hear them. One by one, the witnesses entered. Keisha Williams described being told she was too urban in her speech patterns. Marcus Chen recounted being repeatedly asked if he was good with math, despite being a marketing specialist. Aisha Mohammed explained the subtle pressure to blend in more, meaning remove her hijab. Then Janet Reed took her seat. She was young, maybe 25, visibly nervous but determined. I've worked at Caldwell Trust for 3 years, she began. I loved my job at first. But Raymond Lawson created an environment where certain customers were treated differently. He'd call it security protocol, but it was selective. Black customers had their IDs examined more closely. Latino customers were questioned more extensively about their income sources. It was never explicit enough to file a formal complaint, but it was constant. She pulled out a notebook. I started documenting everything 6 months ago. There are 43 incidents in here. 43 times I watched customers treated with suspicion because of how they looked. Elizabeth Morris's expression had shifted from skeptical to troubled. Why didn't you report this earlier? Because Raymond Lawson decided who got promoted, who got good assignments, who got disciplinary notices. Speaking up meant risking my career. She paused, until a 6-year-old girl showed more courage than I did. Maya's small voice surprised everyone. You were scared. That's okay. Janet's eyes welled with tears. Thank you, sweetheart. But it's not okay. Adults should protect children, not the other way around. After the testimonies concluded, Nathaniel addressed the board. Here's what we're going to do. Comprehensive third-party audit of all our practices. Independent oversight committee with power to investigate and recommend terminations. Mandatory unconscious bias training for every employee, starting with us. Several board members nodded. Others looked resistant. The cost, someone began. The cost of not doing this is the institution's soul. Nathaniel cut them off. Stock prices recover. Reputations can be rebuilt. But if we fail to address this systematically, we don't deserve to survive. A vote was called. This time, it wasn't unanimous. 8 voted in favor, 4 against. But it passed. As the meeting concluded, Elizabeth Morris approached Nathaniel privately. I owe you an apology. And your daughter. I was so concerned with protecting the institution, I forgot what the institution is supposed to stand for. Nathaniel nodded. We all have blind spots. The question is whether we're willing to see them when they're pointed out. Later that evening, Diane arrived with urgent news. Raymond Lawson is planning something. Philip Harding has been dropping hints to media contacts. They're calling it an exclusive interview that will change everything. Do we know what angle they're taking? Not specifically, but Harding's been reaching out to former clients of yours, looking for anyone with grievances, anyone who'll say you're vindictive or power-hungry. Let him dig. My record stands on its own. But that night, alone in his study, Nathaniel felt the first tremor of real concern. He'd built his career carefully, ethically, but no one gets to his level of wealth and power without making enemies, without hard decisions that hurt people. What if Harding found something? Not illegal necessarily, but damaging enough to shift public perception. He thought of Maya sleeping upstairs, trusted in her father's ability to protect her. What if he couldn't? The next morning brought the headline he'd been dreading. Exclusive. Business partners claim Nathaniel Caldwell has history of ruthless tactics. The article featured interviews with 3 people Nathaniel had worked with over the years. A former business partner who claimed Nathaniel had squeezed him out of a profitable deal. An investor who said Nathaniel's aggressive tactics had cost him millions. A competitor who described him as brilliant but merciless. None of it was illegal. All of it was business. But the framing was perfect for Harding's narrative. Nathaniel Caldwell isn't a crusader for justice. He's a billionaire bully who uses his power to destroy anyone who crosses him. Diane read through the article, her expression troubled. Some of this is taken out of context, but some of it... Nathan, did you push Marcus Sterling out of the Thompson deal? Nathaniel was quiet for a moment. Marcus wanted to offshore production to cut costs. I refused. We disagreed. Eventually I bought him out. Fairly, I thought. Did you give him a choice? Not really. It was offshore or exit. I wasn't willing to compromise on that. Diane set down the tablet. So Harding will paint that as you forcing out a partner who disagreed with you, just like you forced out Raymond for disagreeing with your assessment of Maya. It's not the same thing. To public perception, it might be. For the first time, Nathaniel felt the ground shift beneath him. He'd been so certain of his moral position. But had his certainty become arrogance? Had his power made him too comfortable making unilateral decisions? Maya wandered in, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Why do you look worried, Daddy? He pulled her onto his lap. Just thinking about grown-up stuff. About the bank man, about lots of things. She was quiet for a moment, then, Daddy, do you ever make mistakes? The question was so direct. So innocent it pierced him. All the time, sweetheart, more than I'd like. But you fix them, right? I try. But sometimes fixing mistakes means admitting you were wrong. And that's hard for people, even for you. Especially for me. She hugged him tight. I think you're the best daddy ever, even when you make mistakes. One by one, 3 employees testified, each story more damning than the last. Raymond's pattern of prejudice was undeniable, and it had been happening for years. The counter-narrative was building momentum. Within 48 hours, Philip Harding had assembled an entire alternative version of events where Nathaniel was the villain, using his wealth and influence to destroy anyone who challenged him. Cable news showed split screens. On one side, Maya's tearful press conference. On the other, Raymond looking haggard and defeated, a working-class man crushed by billionaire power. Nathaniel watched the coverage with growing frustration. Diane sat beside him, scrolling through social media sentiment analysis. It's splitting down predictable lines, she reported. Progressive audiences support you. Conservative outlets are framing this as cancel culture gone too far. The middle is genuinely confused about who to believe. The truth should be enough. Truth is malleable when presented through the right lens. Harding knows that. A notification pinged on Nathaniel's phone. An email from an address he didn't recognize. Subject line: You need to see this. He opened it cautiously. Inside was a link to a private video file. The timestamp showed it was recorded 2 days after Maya's incident. Nathaniel clicked play. The video showed Raymond Lawson in what appeared to be a bar, several drinks in, talking to someone off camera. I didn't do anything wrong, Raymond slurred. That little girl comes in dressed like she's from the projects. And I'm supposed to assume she's got millions. Please. Anyone would have done the same thing. The only reason this blew up is because her daddy's a billionaire who can't handle his kid being questioned. The off-camera voice asked, So you don't regret how you handled it? Raymond laughed bitterly. I regret getting caught on camera, that's what I regret. If someone hadn't recorded it, this would have blown over in 5 minutes. The kid would have left, her daddy would have complained to corporate, I'd have gotten a slap on the wrist. End of story. The video ended. Nathaniel stared at the screen, his jaw tight. Who sent this? Diane asked, reading over his shoulder. I don't know. Anonymous sender. Could be a trap, could be doctored, or it could be exactly what it appears to be. Raymond admitting he has no remorse. Even if it's real, using it could backfire. You'd look like you're surveilling him, invading his privacy. Nathaniel forwarded the email to Detective Brennan with a note. Received this anonymously. Can you verify authenticity and source? Within hours, Brennan called back. It's real. Recorded by a bartender who recognized Lawson from the news. She's willing to testify to its authenticity. Can we use it? That's a legal question. But from an investigative standpoint, it's legitimate evidence of his state of mind. Nathaniel called his legal team. They debated for 2 hours. Some argued it was smoking gun proof of Raymond's lack of remorse. Others worried it would be seen as piling on, kicking a man when he was down. Finally, Nathaniel made the decision. We don't release it publicly, not yet. We hold it in reserve. If Harding keeps pushing this narrative that Raymond made an innocent mistake and is genuinely remorseful, then we use it to show the truth. That evening, an unexpected visitor arrived. Amanda Cross, the investigative journalist who'd been covering the story extensively. "Mr. Caldwell," she said as Diane showed her in, "I need to ask you something off the record. There's no off the record in a story this public." Amanda smiled slightly. "Fair point. Then let me ask on the record, did you bribe anyone to send you that video of Raymond Lawson?" Nathaniel's eyes narrowed. "No. It arrived anonymously. I forwarded it to law enforcement immediately. Because Philip Harding is claiming you paid someone to secretly record his client. He's threatening to file charges for illegal surveillance. Let him file." The video was recorded in a public bar by an employee who was disturbed by what she heard. Nothing illegal about it. Amanda studied him carefully. "Mr. Caldwell, I've been reporting on this story since it broke. I've interviewed dozens of people, and I keep coming back to one question. What do you really want from all this?" Nathaniel was quiet for a moment. "I want my daughter to grow up in a world where she's not judged by her appearance before her character. I want institutions to be accountable for their culture, not just their individual employees. So I want the next child who walks into that bank to be treated with dignity, regardless of what they're wearing or what they look like. That's a big goal for one incident. It's not one incident. That's the point everyone keeps missing." Maya's experience was the visible tip of a massive iceberg. How many people suffered silently? How many swallowed indignity because they had no recourse? Amanda nodded slowly. "I'm writing a long-form piece, the full story from multiple angles. I wanted to give you a chance to respond to some of Harding's claims before publication." "What claims specifically?" "That you have a history of destroying business partners who cross you. That you're using your daughter as a shield for a personal vendetta. That this has always been about your ego, not justice." Nathaniel felt anger flash hot in his chest, but he kept his voice level. "I've made hard business decisions. I've ended partnerships when values didn't align. But I've never destroyed anyone for personal satisfaction. And using Maya as a shield." He gestured toward her room where she was sleeping. "That child has nightmares about people laughing at her. She asks me every day if people hate her. If I could shield her from any of this, I would." Amanda's expression softened. "For what it's worth, I believe you. But belief isn't the same as proof. And in the court of public opinion, Harding is winning the perception battle." After she left, Nathaniel sat in the darkness of his study, exhaustion finally catching up with him. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. The envelope Amanda Cross received contained $50,000 in cash and a simple note: "Bury the Caldwell story. More where this came from." She immediately called the FBI. Nathaniel stared at the message. Someone was trying to bribe the journalist covering the story. His mind raced through possibilities. Raymond himself, Harding, someone else with an agenda. He forwarded the message to Detective Brennan and Special Agent Carson from the FBI's White-Collar Crime Division. Carson called within minutes. "Mr. Caldwell, we need to talk. Tonight." They met at Nathaniel's office at midnight. Carson was in his 40s, sharp-eyed and no-nonsense. "Amanda Cross contacted us this afternoon," Carson began. "She received an envelope with cash and instructions to stop covering your story. The bills are marked. We're tracing them now. Do you think it's Raymond?" "We don't know yet. But combined with the threatening messages traced to Harding's office, we're looking at a pattern of witness intimidation and obstruction. Can you prove Harding's involved? We're working on it. But Mr. Caldwell, I need to ask. Have you or anyone acting on your behalf made any similar attempts to influence coverage?" "Absolutely not. Because if this goes to trial, every aspect of your conduct will be scrutinized. I have nothing to hide." Carson nodded. "Good. Because Harding's building a case that you're the real criminal here, using your power to orchestrate a witch hunt. If we can prove he's behind witness intimidation and bribery, it destroys his credibility completely." Nathaniel leaned back in his chair. "How long until you have answers?" "Days, maybe weeks." These investigations take time. We might not have weeks. The public narrative is shifting. Every day Harding controls the story is a day Maya has to live with doubt about whether people believe her. Then we'd better work fast. After Carson left, Nathaniel stood at his office window. The city stretched below, millions of stories intersecting. Somewhere out there, Philip Harding was plotting his next move. Somewhere, Raymond Lawson was nursing his bitterness. And somewhere evidence was accumulating that might finally reveal the full truth. He thought of Maya sleeping at home. Guardian tucked under her arm, trusting her father to make everything right. "I'm trying, sweetheart," he whispered to the glass. "I'm trying." 3 days later, the forensic analysis came back. The cash Amanda Cross received had been withdrawn from an account belonging to Stephen Blake, a private investigator, who'd worked with Philip Harding on multiple cases. Detective Brennan and Special Agent Carson executed a search warrant on Blake's office. What they found was damning. Emails coordinating with Harding, receipts for cash withdrawals, a second payment prepared for another journalist. But there was something else. Documents showing Blake had been digging into Nathaniel's background, looking for anything compromising. Business deals, personal relationships, financial records. One file caught Carson's attention, a draft document titled Strategic Narrative Reversal. It outlined a plan to shift public perception by finding dirt on Nathaniel, portraying Raymond as the victim, and using sympathetic media to question whether the original incident was as racist as claimed. "This is conspiracy to obstruct justice," Carson told Nathaniel during a briefing. "Witness intimidation, attempted bribery, and if we can prove Harding directed it, he's facing disbarment and potential prison time. When will you move on him?" "We're building an airtight case. We'll have enough to arrest Blake within 48 hours. Once he's in custody, he'll have a choice: cooperate and testify against Harding, or face the full weight of federal charges alone." "Will he flip?" Carson smiled grimly. "They always do." Nathaniel felt something shift. For the first time since this began, he sensed the tide truly turning, not just in court, in the deeper current of truth. That afternoon, Philip Harding held another press conference. He stood beside Raymond, both men projecting wounded dignity. "My client has been vilified," Harding declared. "His career destroyed, his reputation shattered, all because he asked reasonable questions about an unusual account access. The response has been grotesquely disproportionate, driven by a billionaire's ego and unlimited resources." Raymond nodded sadly. "I've lost everything. My job, my health insurance, my ability to provide for my family. And for what?" Making a judgment call that any responsible manager would make. Reporters shouted questions. "Mr. Lawson, do you regret anything about how you handled the situation?" "I regret not being more careful with my words, but my intent was never malicious. I was protecting the bank's assets. That's what I was trained to do. Do you think race played a role?" "Absolutely not." The child's age and presentation were the factors, not her skin color. The racial component has been imposed by people with an agenda. "What about the video showing you at a bar saying you didn't do anything wrong?" Raymond's expression flickered for just a moment. "That video was recorded illegally. I was drunk, upset, venting frustrations. It doesn't represent my true feelings." Harding jumped in smoothly. "That video is inadmissible and frankly disgusting. A man goes to a bar after losing his livelihood and someone secretly records him? That's the kind of tactics we're dealing with. Mr. Caldwell will stop at nothing to justify his vindictive crusade." Nathaniel watched from his office, Diane beside him. "He's good," she admitted again. "He's reframing the video as evidence of your overreach, rather than Raymond's true character." "Not for long. Once Blake is arrested, this whole narrative collapses. If Blake testifies, if he doesn't, Harding can claim Blake was a rogue operator, acting without authorization. Then we make sure Blake has every incentive to cooperate." That evening, Maya asked the question Nathaniel had been dreading. "Daddy, when does this end?" He pulled her onto his lap. "Soon, sweetheart, very soon." "But how do you know?" "Because the truth always wins. It just sometimes takes longer than we'd like." She was quiet then. "Are you sure people believe me?" "Most people do. The ones who matter definitely do. What about the ones who don't matter? Even they'll come around, once they see all the facts. But what if they don't? Nathaniel held her tighter. Then they don't. But that doesn't change the truth. You told me what happened. I believe you. The bank believes you. That's enough. She pressed her face against his chest. I just want it to be over. I know, baby. Me too. 2 days later, Stephen Blake was arrested at dawn. FBI agents surrounded his office, executing warrants, seizing computers and documents. By noon, Blake was in federal custody. By evening, his attorney had reached out to prosecutors about a cooperation agreement. The dominoes were falling. Carson called Nathaniel with an update. Blake is talking. He's confirming that Harding directed the bribery attempt. We have him on tape discussing payment amounts, target journalists, and strategy for shifting the narrative. When do you arrest Harding? Tomorrow morning. We wanted you to know first. Nathaniel closed his eyes, feeling the weight lift fractionally. Thank you. One more thing, Carson added. Blake also admitted to creating those threatening messages from Harding's office. Harding knew about them and didn't stop them. That's conspiracy to commit witness intimidation. Build your case, make it ironclad. We will. That night, Nathaniel sat with Maya while she fell asleep. She'd been quieter lately, more withdrawn. The stress was taking its toll on her 6-year-old psyche. Tomorrow, he whispered after her breathing evened. Tomorrow things change. At dawn, federal agents arrested Philip Harding at his home. The charges were extensive. Witness intimidation, attempted bribery, conspiracy to obstruct justice, each carrying significant prison time. The news broke during morning shows. Footage of Harding in handcuffs, being led from his townhouse, flooded every channel. By mid-morning, Raymond Lawson's remaining public support had evaporated. Without Harding's aggressive defense and narrative control, the original facts reasserted themselves. A manager had humiliated a child. The evidence was clear, the consequences appropriate. Nathaniel's phone buzzed with messages. Apologies from board members who'd questioned his approach. Congratulations from allies. Interview requests from journalists wanting the full story. But the message that mattered most came from Maya. She'd drawn another picture. This time it showed her, Nathan, and Guardian standing under a sunshine. Above them, 2 figures with wings smiled down. At the bottom, in her careful 6-year-old handwriting, "We won. Mama and Papa are proud." Nathaniel held the drawing, tears streaming down his face. Not quite yet, sweetheart, but we're close. With Philip Harding's arrest, the full scope of the conspiracy began unraveling. Stephen Blake, facing federal charges and desperate for leniency, provided detailed testimony about everything he'd done at Harding's direction. The recordings were damning. Harding's voice, clear and unmistakable, instructing Blake to find dirt on Nathaniel, discussing how much money to offer journalists, planning ways to intimidate witnesses who might support Maya's version of events. Within 72 hours, the narrative had completely reversed. News outlets that had questioned Nathaniel's motives now ran stories about how he'd been right all along. Editorial boards that had suggested his response was excessive now praised his persistence in the face of coordinated attacks. But for Nathaniel, vindication felt hollow. Maya had spent weeks living with doubt and fear. That damage couldn't be undone by headlines. She was in therapy now, seeing a child psychologist twice a week. Dr. Sarah Martinez had worked with trauma survivors for 20 years and specialized in helping children process public scrutiny. Maya is resilient, Dr. Martinez told Nathaniel during one of their parent consultations, but she's also 6. She doesn't fully understand why adults did what they did. She's internalized some of the doubt, wondering if she somehow caused all this pain. How do I help her? Keep being honest, keep reassuring her, and most importantly, help her see that standing up for truth, even when it's hard, is always worthwhile. Even when it hurts her, especially then, because that's when courage matters most. At Caldwell Trust, the reforms were being implemented rapidly. The Independent Oversight Committee had been established, led by respected civil rights attorney Marcus Stone. Every employee was undergoing mandatory training. Complaint procedures had been overhauled to include external review. But perhaps most significantly, 36 additional complaints had been filed since the Oversight Committee's creation. People who'd suffered discrimination or mistreatment for years finally felt safe coming forward. Each new complaint was investigated thoroughly. Some were substantiated, leading to terminations or reassignments. Others were resolved through mediation and apologies, but all were taken seriously. Elizabeth Morris, now serving as interim chair of the board, called Nathaniel with updates regularly. "We've identified 5 managers who exhibited similar patterns to Raymond," she reported during one call. "All have been placed on administrative leave pending investigation." 5 in one institution. I suspect there are more. The culture ran deep, but we're cleaning it out, branch by branch. What about the financial impact? Stock prices are recovering. Customers who left are returning. Turns out institutional integrity is good for business. Who knew? There was dry humor in her voice, but also genuine commitment. Elizabeth had become an unexpected ally, someone who'd looked at the evidence and chosen principle over comfort. Meanwhile, Raymond Lawson had disappeared from public view. His home was empty, his phone disconnected. Rumors suggested he'd left the city, perhaps the state, seeking anonymity somewhere his name wasn't synonymous with prejudice. Philip Harding was facing disbarment hearings in addition to criminal charges. His law license was suspended pending the outcome of the federal case. Clients were fleeing. His prestigious career was in ruins. But there was one loose end that troubled Nathaniel. Janet Reed, the teller who'd come forward with her journal of incidents, had received threatening messages, anonymous emails telling her to recant, to claim she'd lied, to save Raymond's reputation. Detective Brennan was investigating, but the messages were routed through proxy servers, making them difficult to trace. Nathaniel arranged for private security for Janet. He also offered her a position at his corporate headquarters, away from the branch where she'd witnessed so much. "I can't thank you enough," Janet told him during their meeting. "You didn't have to do any of this." "Yes, I did. You risked everything to tell the truth. The least I can do is make sure you're protected. I hope Maya knows how lucky she is to have you as a father." Nathaniel smiled sadly. "I hope she understands someday why I couldn't just let this go, why I had to push for systemic change instead of accepting easy answers. She will. When she's older, she'll understand." That evening, Nathaniel received an unexpected visitor. Thomas Bennett, the board member who'd been most resistant to reforms, arrived at the penthouse looking uncomfortable. "I owe you an apology," he said without preamble. "I was wrong. About everything. I prioritized stability over justice, profits over people. Watching these investigations unfold, seeing how deep the problems ran, I'm ashamed I didn't see it sooner. What changed your mind? My granddaughter. She's 8. I was watching the news with her, and she asked me why that man was mean to the little girl, and I realized I couldn't explain it in a way that didn't make me complicit. So I had to choose. Be the grandfather she could respect, or be the board member who protected institutions at all costs. You made the right choice. I made the late choice, but I'm here now. What can I do to help? Support the reforms. Hold the line when others waver, and remember what this felt like, this moment of clarity, so you don't forget when the next crisis comes." After Bennett left, Maya emerged from her room. She'd been coloring, her favorite escape from stress. "Daddy, when all this is done, can we go on vacation, just us?" Nathaniel pulled her close. "Absolutely. Where do you want to go?" "Somewhere with no cameras." "No people who know my name. Just beaches and ice cream." "That sounds perfect, sweetheart, I promise. As soon as this is finished, we'll disappear for a month." She smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen in weeks. "I'd like that." Over the next few days, the final pieces fell into place. Stephen Blake pleaded guilty and agreed to testify against Philip Harding in exchange for a reduced sentence. The threatening messages to Janet Reed were traced to a computer in Raymond Lawson's former home, though Raymond himself had vanished. Caldwell Trust settled with Keisha Williams, Marcus Chen, and Aisha Mohammed for undisclosed sums and public apologies. More importantly, all 3 were offered positions on the new Oversight Committee, turning victims into architects of change. The scholarship fund in honor of Sarah and Marcus Thompson was established with a $10 million endowment. It would provide full college tuition to underprivileged students, starting with 50 scholarships in the first year. And through it all, Maya slowly began to heal. The nightmares became less frequent. Her smile returned. She started talking about school and friends again instead of constantly asking about the case. One evening, she asked Nathaniel a question that surprised him. "Daddy, do you think that man is sorry now?" "Raymond, honestly, sweetheart, I don't know. I hope so. I hope he's somewhere thinking about what he did and deciding to be better." "Do you forgive him?" Nathaniel considered carefully. "Forgiveness is complicated. I forgive him for hurting you because holding on to anger would only hurt us more. But forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean what he did was okay." "I think Mama would want me to forgive him," Maya said quietly. "Your Mama had a bigger heart than most people. If she were here, she'd probably already have forgiven him. But she'd also want to make sure he could never hurt another child. So we can forgive and still want things to change." "Exactly. That's wisdom, sweetheart. Real wisdom." She hugged him tight. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, Maya. More than anything in this world." 6 months later, the transformation was undeniable. Caldwell Trust had become a model for corporate reform. Other financial institutions studied their oversight structure, copied their training programs, and reached out for guidance on implementing similar changes. Nathaniel stood in the main lobby of the Manhattan branch where everything had started. The space looked different now, not physically, but the atmosphere had changed. Employees greeted customers warmly. Security protocols were applied uniformly. Dignity was the default. Elizabeth Morris stood beside him. "A year ago, I would have said what you did was reckless. Now I see it was necessary. Sometimes institutions need to be shaken to their foundations." "How many complaints has the Oversight Committee processed?" 217, some substantiated, some not. "But every single one taken seriously, investigated thoroughly. We've terminated 12 employees for discriminatory behavior, retrained hundreds more, and most importantly, we've created a culture where people feel safe speaking up." "What about financial performance? Better than ever. Turns out treating people with respect is good for business." They walked through the lobby toward the private conference room where the press conference would be held. Today was the official launch of the Thompson Scholarship Fund, and Maya would present the first 50 scholarships to recipients personally. "She's nervous," Nathaniel admitted to Elizabeth. "She's been practicing her speech for weeks. She'll be wonderful." "That child has more courage than most adults I know." The conference room filled quickly. Reporters, scholarship recipients and their families, board members, community leaders. The energy was celebratory, a stark contrast to the tense press conferences that had dominated the past months. Maya sat beside Nathaniel at the head table, wearing a blue dress her mother would have loved. Guardian sat on the table beside her, slightly worn but vigilant as always. When it was time, Nathaniel stood and approached the microphone. "Thank you all for being here today. 6 months ago, my daughter walked into this building and asked to check her account. What should have been a simple transaction became a moment that changed everything." He paused, looking at Maya. "She didn't set out to change an institution. She just wanted to be treated with respect. But her courage, her refusal to accept humiliation as normal, sparked something larger than any of us anticipated. Today, we're not here to rehash what went wrong. We're here to celebrate what went right. The reforms implemented, the voices heard, the culture transformed, and most importantly, the future we're building together." He gestured to the scholarship recipients seated in the front rows. These 50 young people represent hope. They're students from underserved communities who will now have opportunities that might otherwise have been denied. They carry forward the legacy of Sarah and Marcus Thompson, heroes who believed in helping others even at personal cost. Maya stood, and Nathaniel adjusted the microphone down for her. She looked out at the audience, her small hands gripping the podium. "My mama and papa died saving people," she began, her voice clear, despite her nervousness. "They didn't think about being scared. They just helped. My daddy says that's what heroes do." She paused, glancing at Nathaniel, who nodded encouragement. "When that man laughed at me, I was really scared, but I remembered Mama telling me to always tell the truth, so I did, and my daddy believed me. And now lots of things are better. I hope these scholarships help you do amazing things, like my Mama and Papa would have wanted. And I hope nobody ever laughs at you for asking questions or being who you are." The room erupted in applause. Several people were openly crying. The scholarship recipients stood, some of them approaching Maya to shake her hand. One young woman, 18 and about to start college, knelt down to Maya's level. "Thank you," she said simply. "You gave me a chance I never thought I'd have." Maya smiled, a genuine 6-year-old smile free of the burden she'd carried for months. "You're welcome. Work really hard, okay? I promise." The press conference concluded with the formal presentation of scholarship letters. Each recipient came forward, shook hands with Nathaniel and Maya, and posed for photos. Afterward, as the crowd dispersed, Detective Brennan approached. "Mr. Caldwell, I wanted to let you know. We found Raymond Lawson." "Where?" "Small town in Oregon. He's working construction under his legal name. Keeping his head down. No trouble. Is he going to face additional charges for those threatening messages?" The DA reviewed the evidence. "It's circumstantial. Could have been someone using his computer. Without stronger proof, they're declining to prosecute." Nathaniel nodded slowly. "Maybe that's for the best. He's lost his career, his reputation. Living with that might be punishment enough." "You're more generous than most people would be." "I'm tired, Detective, tired of fighting. Ready to focus on building instead of tearing down." After Brennan left, Nathaniel found Maya in the lobby, talking to a young boy about her age whose mother had been one of the scholarship recipients. "Your mom's going to be a doctor?" Maya was asking. "Yeah," the boy beamed. "She says now she can help people like your parents helped people." "That's really cool." Maya paused. "Hey, do you want to play sometime?" "Really?" "Yeah. I need more friends who aren't just cameras and reporters." The boy's mother approached, tears in her eyes. "Mr. Caldwell, I don't know how to thank you. This scholarship changes everything for my family. Thanks Sarah and Marcus Thompson. This is their legacy. I'm just the one making sure it lives on." As they prepared to leave, Diane approached with one final update. "The Justice Department formally charged Philip Harding this morning. Trial is set for next spring. Will they call Maya to testify? They're trying to avoid it. They have enough evidence without putting a child on the stand. Good, she's been through enough." They walked out of the building together, father and daughter, into afternoon sunshine. Protesters no longer lined the streets. Cameras no longer swarmed. Life was returning to something resembling normal. "Daddy," Maya said as they reached the car, "are we done now? Is it finally over?" Nathaniel opened the door for her. "The hard part's over. Now comes the good part. Watching all these changes take root, seeing the scholarships help kids, making sure this never happens again." "And vacation?" He laughed. "And vacation. 2 weeks in Hawaii, starting next month. Just us. And Guardian? Always Guardian." As the car pulled away from Caldwell Trust, Nathaniel looked back at the building one last time. So much pain had started there, but also so much transformation. His phone buzzed one final time, a text from an unknown number. He opened it cautiously but found only a brief message. "You were right to fight. Some of us are ashamed we didn't fight with you sooner. Raymond." Nathaniel stared at the message, then showed it to Maya. She read it slowly, sounding out the words. "Is he sorry?" she asked. "I think he's starting to be. That's good. Everyone should get a chance to be better." Out of the mouths of babes, Nathaniel thought, wisdom beyond her years. The car merged into traffic, carrying them toward home, toward healing, toward a future built on the foundation Maya's courage had laid. The story of Maya Caldwell would be told for years, but for Maya herself, it was simply the day she learned that truth matters, that speaking up changes things, and that having people who believe you makes all the difference. CTA Final. Thank you to everyone who typed dignity and shared your locations with us. Seeing this global community united for accountability and respect proves that justice is a universal human value. If this story moved you, please subscribe for more stories of courage triumphing over prejudice. Until next time, remember that a child's voice can change an entire institution when the truth is on their side.